I don't know about you, but I've noticed there's a lot of talk about platforms nowadays. The concept of platform engineering has really kind of surfaced as something of great interest, I think legitimately so over the past few years. And it really is this evolution of the notion of platforms that we have. So what I wanted to go over from a application developer's point of view is not so much what a platform is, though I'll talk about that briefly, but what you should expect from a platform. And when you think of there being platform engineers, platform owners, these platform teams in your large organization, what should you expect from them and ask from them? Because as we'll get into, the only point, as far as I believe it, of a platform is to help application developers out. They're the customers of it. So it's good to know what you want and ask for it. So first, what is a platform? Well, we've had platforms forever, right? A platform is basically the stack of stuff, hopefully very well integrated together, that sits right above your infrastructure layer, goes up into how you provision and configure that infrastructure, how you use it as a runtime environment, and of course, how it's secured and how networking gets done, all of that thrilling stuff that developers probably shouldn't care about. But then also all the middleware and the common services, from databases to messaging queues to API gateways, all of that stuff that is sort of like very required for your application development, but not really like what you're programming, frameworks, runtime environments, things like that. And then there's all sorts of new stuff being piled on top of a platform, all the tools that developers would need to use. And this is what's new about platforms, is this area of thinking about, if this platform is used for developers, why don't we integrate in all of the stuff that they need, from the collaboration site that they use to the build, the CI/CD tools that they have, how APIs are managed and used, really like all of the different stuff that a developer would need, the kind of interface for it, kind of up to and integrated with the IDE. And this whole idea, kind of layering on top of that top part, that platform interfaces, I think is what's new about platforms from past eras. And this is there's a great model from the Cloud Native Computing Foundation that came out last year, which is this. This is actually an earlier version of it. I like it a lot more because it has some pictures of projects, CNCF projects that fit at each level. But this is a great model going over what a platform is in a cloud native world, right? You know, people are always telling me to be vendor agnostic and not pitch vendor stuff. So here you go. This is a non-vendor model of what things look like. I mentioned that we've had platforms for a long time, and I want to go over a minor point here that I think is important for understanding what platforms are and what to ask about them, and especially now, kind of figuring out the state of platforms that we're in. And that is that we like to reinvent platforms every 5, 8, or 10 years, right? You can kind of see kind of an accurate but sort of jokey history of platforms that we've had over the years, right? If you remember the platform as a service stuff from the early days of public cloud, something like a Heroku came in there. And then there were many places that wanted to imitate Heroku, kind of build on the success of what it was doing, from Azure to Google, Cloud Engine, I think. Early on, all these public cloud services were platform as a service. And we at Tanzu and VMware and Pivotal, and back to VMware at the beginning, we made this thing called Cloud Foundry, which many people use, maybe even you. And it builds on this notion of what a platform looks like, taking care of all that infrastructure and that stack of stuff. And then, we did another table flip recently when Kubernetes came in and grabbed our attention and focused it down at the infrastructure layer. I'm sure if you're watching this, you've learned about and messed around with Kubernetes, even tried to use it as a developer to build something on. But what we found out, of course, is that at the infrastructure layer, you need to build a platform on top of it. And so that's what you see a lot of discussion and a lot of work on now. I think it's why platform engineering has reemerged, because we need to build a new platform, because we just kind of get rid of the old ones instead of evolving them. We get enamored of things, go down the stack, and have to build it back up. I think that drives a lot of why you see a lot of interest in platforms. And it's good to understand that what we're doing is building that platform up from the base infrastructure layer. Or maybe if you're lucky, you're still using something like Cloud Foundry, and you can just get on with your daily life. So that's a very brief look at the technology. Let's think about what the process, you could even say culture, if you want, of a platform is. And I think it's best summed up by this quote from Thomas, who's been running platforms inside of Mercedes-Benz for a while. And that is that the platform team thinks about the application developers as the customers of the platform. Now, this is different than regular infrastructure, where you're delivering capabilities, you're guaranteeing uptime and performance. You're more giving a utility than necessarily evolving that utility and thinking about it as a product. Now, maybe people do things that way, but typically in traditional infrastructure management, you're not product managing that infrastructure. You're thinking about what is needed, not about who your customers are, and really interacting with your customers, the developers, to find out what problems they have, how you can solve their issues. This is a huge difference in the mentality that platform groups have. They have product managers, which is something most application developers are familiar with, but is not really a role that you have in infrastructure. So this is the first thing that you as a developer want to ask your platform team is, are you product managing it? Do you have a backlog of features? Is there a way for me as a customer to talk with you about requirements, about features and things that I need to add in there? And I think you'll find that this is actually a very rare thing in aggregate. There's some people, maybe some of you are watching, who are lucky enough to use a platform. A lot of the people that we've worked over the years who use our Cloud Foundry-based platforms, we try to put this mentality in place, and it's kind of built around that. But as we build platforms back up, there's a lot of chatter about platform as a product, which is great. So we're kind of rediscovering this product management of platforms. So the next thing to think about in a platform is you want the platform team to manage as much of the, let's call it, undifferentiated services. All of the stuff that you would need for any type of application you're building in a large organization. And just as an example of kind of typical Spring apps, right? In the microservices there, one of those should really say apps, not just microservices. But if you're an application developer, what's unique, what you are actually programming, what you should be actually programming and paying attention to, is what's important to your business. Is it's going to be the stuff in the middle, right? It's going to be the things that are customized to how your business operates, what it's doing with its customers. And the stuff on the sides is not really anything that you should be customizing. It should be just common stuff that you're using. So a platform team typically is going to manage those things for you. You can think about this with the clouds out there, where they just take care of all of that stuff. You don't really have to worry about it. Of course, you have to know how to use it and configure it. The platform team still needs to exist, but it's not something that the application developers take on their own and integrate together and use. Like if you look at Azure Spring applications, you can see an example of this, where a lot of these things are just built into the platform and you don't have to worry about setting them up. So that's the second thing that you want to ask of the platform team is, I want you to manage that stuff for me. And you get a great benefit from centralizing those kind of core components. And that is, well, one, you as an application developer don't have to worry about it. But when it comes to upgrading that stuff, making sure that it's tuned for performance, and very importantly, making sure that it's governed well, that it has security and upgraded, that platform team should be responsible for that. And you can see kind of an example of that. One of the very common things that application developers suffer from is the versions of frameworks that they're using, whether it's Spring or Java or other things. It takes a lot of effort to upgrade them, to get new versions, which makes them miss out on not only new capabilities, but also great performance improvements, as you can see here, right? Which ultimately for the organization is not great, because the better performance that you have, like with newer versions of Spring Boot, the less memory, the less compute you have to use, and therefore the less sort of cloud infrastructure you have to use, and you can drive down costs. You can do more with the same, or just cut your cloud bill with that. So if you have all your application developers managing this stuff on their own, it's going to be a lot harder to upgrade across the board, to apply kind of consistent ways of using it, to have governance. And you really want your platform team doing that for you. That should be something that they can do and they're able to do. Which brings us to a specific example, right? You know, everyone wants to use, I'll just say AI, because I don't really care about the distinction. But they want to use AI tools, very legitimately so, right? There's all sorts of great capabilities and functions that an organization can have on the business side, but also just to help you code, right? And relying on all the different application developer teams to figure out all the governance, the security, setting things up on their own is just madness, right? Again, in a large enterprise, you want to centralize a lot of that stuff. That's where you're going to get not only cost and performance benefits, but also if managed as a product, thinking about it as a platform, you as the application developer are going to get tons of benefits, because just like you would expect in cloud, it's going to be updated more frequently. New capabilities will get in there. So this is the kind of thing that you want your platform team managing for you, almost proactively coming up with a capability that you would have before you ask it, like a good waiter, I guess. And you can see an example of that from us in the Tanzu application service, which is what we call Cloud Foundry now, the Cloud Foundry distro that we have. There's a beta version of managing your own AI stuff in it, right? And you can have it integrate directly into VS Code. You have all sorts of frameworks that work with Spring. But this is something that you as the application developer shouldn't have to worry about if you have a good platform team in place, something that you should be asking for. So to kind of pull together a lot of different things, what we have here is the developer survey. Now, you don't need to read all of this. You can follow the link below. You can get a copy of these slides and click on it. I know you can't click on it now. But this gives you a good representation of the things you should be asking of your platform team. What this is a survey that the platform team should be sending to you application developers to find out what features you need, what problems you have, kind of abstractly what jobs to be done are, what your sentiment are. And this is the kind of thing that if you're familiar with product management, you send surveys like this out and you talk with developers to just find out what you can do for them. So as you look through some of these, you can see that if I was a platform owner, a product manager of a platform, and I sent this to developers maybe every month for a few months, then every quarter, I would get a very quick sense about what the developers were suffering with, what I could add to the platform to do things better. But even more importantly, as I asked them these same questions quarter over quarter, I would see if I was improving it, right? So this is an example of many of the types of things that you would want your platform team to focus on. They could be tools, it could be sort of like outcomes or things that have happened because the platform team is focusing on it. But definitely if you're an application developer and you're trying to figure out what to expect from platform teams, or even better, if you're a platform team and you're trying to figure out how to start operating and have this kind of platform as a product or platform engineering mentality, start with this survey. It's freely available. We worked on just making it free to use. You can download the CSV file or whatever you want to put it into your Google survey or Azure survey apps. I don't even know what you put it in, your survey stuff. And you just get that back in a spreadsheet and you can start to figure out what features you want to product manage into the platform. So with that, I just wanted to give a very brief overview of what a platform is and what you as application developers should start expecting a platform to be. And therefore, when you're talking with the platform teams in your organization, if they're sort of curious about what they should be doing, perhaps you can gently suggest to them that this is what we would like a platform to do. Now, the other thing that I think is important in looking over all of this is it's always very important to figure out what should I as an application developer be focusing on? Should I be focusing on building this platform, or should I be focusing on having other people build it for me? So thanks. And if you're interested in getting those slides, you can check them here or below where the recording is. And I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. If you're interested in talking more, you should subscribe to my newsletter. It's fantastic.